This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. I want to talk about the eclipse, and if you saw my previous videos on the eclipse, about a lot of the bizarre things lining up with the date of April the 8th when the eclipse is supposed to take place, it is important that we keep an eye on the spiritual aspect of this. I've talked over and over on my channel over the years about Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley is the man that they literally call, and he is known as the Beast 666. And from the Beatles to Jay-Z to Hollywood to the Jonas Brothers, celebrities are constantly endorsing Aleister Crowley. We're even seeing mainstream shows that I've exposed over the years recently even bring attention to Aleister Crowley and his occult-like rituals as being a normal, acceptable thing in our society. Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin fame even bought one of his homes where many of these rituals involving children took place. So Aleister Crowley, among many other things, is known for invoking Horus and performing what is called the supreme ritual and the equinox of the gods, specifically on this date of April the 8th. Now, the Thelemic New Year, some believe is on March 20th, but others celebrate it on April the 8th. It depends on the sun and the year. Well, clearly this year they'll be celebrating it on April the 8th. And the story with Crowley goes, so you have an understanding of why there's going to be lots of spiritual things done and we need to stay prayed up during this time period. But the story goes back in March of 1904 that his then wife, Rose Edith Kelly, that they were spending the night in the Great Pyramids and they were performing rituals inside of these pyramids. And what ended up happening was his wife, Rose, went into what we would look at as demonic possession, was under demonic possession. And Crowley started asking her questions as she was in this trance. And she kept saying to him, "They're waiting for you." And this woman, Rose, that he was married to, didn't know anything about magic, didn't know anything about mysticism. And she started mentioning Horus to Aleister Crowley, the name of Horus. And Crowley knew that Rose didn't have a clue who Horus was. So he knew that his wife had to have been under some type of demonic possession. Now, for those of you quickly who don't know who Horus is the one that we're told that eyeball that they love so much is correlated to, right? The all-seeing eye of Horus. If you do a basic search, if you're wondering about the all-seeing eye, you will find that it's the eye of Providence or the eye of Horus. That's the symbol that we always see. That is the symbol that frequently is used by every one of these celebrities, by every one of these corporations who all love eyeballs. It is Horus. So we're talking about with this ritual that was about to occur, that Crowley was in fact invoking the deity of Horus. So while Crowley was speaking to his wife who was under demonic possession told Crowley to go into the temple and write down what he heard between noon and 1 p.m. beginning on April the 8th. And this is where the Book of the Law, which is like the Bible almost. There's many books that the occult follow, but the Book of the Law is one of the big, most important books that they follow. Okay, other people will argue that there's certain, that there isn't one specifically, like we all follow the Bible, but the Book of the Law, in some senses, to just make it as simple as possible for the reader or the listener out there, is like, in a sense, the occult's Bible. That is when it was written, on April the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th. And it's believed that while he was in the pyramids, those pyramids they're obsessed with, that he was invoking the spirit of Horus and thus translating this into book. And thus we were unfortunately given the Book of the Law. So if we look at this feast, right, the supreme ritual celebrates the invocation of Horus. Again, and this goes back to 1904, but it also correlates with the equinox of the gods, which is the changing of the aeons from old, where Osiris ruled, to the new, where Horus now rules. And Crowley was quoted as saying, "The supreme ritual is the invocation of Horus, which brought about the opening of a new aeon. The date of March 20th or April the 8th, the equinox of the gods, is the term used to describe the beginning of a new aeon or a new magical formula. It should be celebrated at every equinox. So yearly, again, I talk about how every year, right? We all know it is, it's the first day of spring. It's the first day of fall. It's the first day of summer. It's the first day of winter, right? These specific calendar dates are all, of course, pagan, as most holidays are, as I've been discussing for years now for people out there that are new to all this stuff. These are massive ritual days for sacrifice. Okay, Halloween is known to be when the veil is the thinnest every year, and the amounts of sacrifice that are done between October the 13th to the 31st help bring about the thinning of the veil because of the ritual offerings that are done. So that is part of the equinox of the gods that's celebrated with what we know as spring, but then you correlate that with the eclipse and the supreme ritual. And we're talking about a time period where some of the most wicked Satanists on the earth celebrate the religion, to them is a religion of Thelema, which to us is really just devil worship, which doesn't mean what they want to perceive to us in today's society as, they worship the devil. They don't really worship the devil. We're talking real legitimate OTO devil worshiping, which means we're talking human sacrifice, witchcraft, demonic possession, and summoning spirits. Now, the Bible tells us all about spiritual warfare and how we are in the midst of a spiritual battle, right? In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Okay, and that's what we are working against. That is what we are fighting against. And it's important to understand Aleister Crowley and how important he is to the occult. Because when he performed this ritual, Crowley himself described the encounter in his book, The Equinox of the Gods, literally as saying that the voice of a wasp, who was an associate of Horus, came to him and had him write the book of the law. So Christians out there shouldn't see this as some type of a crazy thing, because to them, Aleister Crowley, some believe is the beast himself, is a prophet in the minds of most of these people in the occult. So the same way that we look at the Bible and we look at prophets in the Bible, or we look at the book of Revelation and the vision that John had in Revelation, the same way that we believe that we get these prophecies from God given to us, the enemy of us, the wicked ones on this world, receive their prophecies from these wicked entities, these wicked demons, the fallen ones. So this is important for people to know. Now, a lot of these events that occur revolving around the moon, right? We know of blood moons and things like the eclipse. These are time periods where they invoke a lot of these demons and they perform a lot of the spiritual warfare. And the attacks that they're trying to perform are on us. So we need to stay prayed up during these time periods. Now, another thing to note during this is that, I guess if you want to look at it as a coincidence, Aleister Crowley's magical retirement home in Hebron, New Hampshire is one of the locations that the eclipse is supposed to go directly over. Okay, so it's literally going to be over directly a home that he used to own in New Hampshire, where a lot of ritual, and people hear ritual, they're like, what is a ritual? Does that mean they're bobbing for apples? And are they going to be putting candy corn out? Rituals involve massive amounts of blood sacrifice. That's what they involve, okay? And the blood is not blood that they're getting from party fare, okay? The blood is the blood of the innocent, because that's the only blood that Satan craves. That's why children are used in these rituals. So we can guarantee that during this specific solar eclipse, while people are looking around expecting grid shutdowns, while people are expecting some type, the stuff I've covered already, talking about martial law test experiments, we can guarantee for a fact that there are going to be major, major implications that come from this spiritually. There's going to be major things that are summoned. And again, Christians hear this stuff and they still live and are of this world because they see the things with their eyes that they want to see and they believe the things that they want to believe and they tell themselves they're not of this world. But we are in the midst of a massive spiritual battle. Okay, and again, I can't emphasize enough the supreme ritual that was performed, that is performed during these equinoxes or the equinox of the gods, is going to be reenacted during this time period. It's going to be reenacted during this eclipse. And who knows what will come from it, because a lot of it is probably stuff we're not going to see with our own eyes. I don't expect to look up and see a giant black hole in the sky. Okay? But I certainly expect a lot of things to come forward and come to the forefront, especially during the remaining parts of this year with things that are planned out to occur. So spiritual warfare is something that we always all need to be prayed up on and prayed up against. Okay? So Crowley, it is another thing that's important to note is that, Crowley's book, the Book of the Law, which you've heard me talk about many times. A lot of you have heard me over and over talk about the Book of the Law. I've used quotes from the Book of Law, the Book of the Law. Okay? And that quote is, love is the law, love under will. So this is when that was written. Okay? And if you haven't noticed around us how the term love has turned into the most corrupt word in our vocabulary, because the things that they're telling us to love are all the most wicked possible sins we could imagine. Okay, they're using the word love and duping Christians with the word love. And that ties into Aleister Crowley's Book of the Law. Love is the law, love under will. That is the concept of the book. Okay, and he talks in there about the supreme ritual being the invocation of Horus. Horus, of course, again, the one whose eyeball our government, our world leaders, these globalists, all the celebrities seem to be obsessed with in love, right? The all-seeing eye of Horus. Or, as a lot of us have come to know Horus to this day, Lucifer. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. Share this video with people. Get them aware of it. We need to stay prayed up. And we need to be aware of these things. People always tell me, they're like, why do we need to be aware of the wicked ones, right? And I look at what they, a lot of these, so-called preachers and stuff talk about, and everyone's allowed to, and entitled to listen to what they want. So they read the Bible to everybody. Then they use lessons from their day-to-day life. A lot of the times they don't even interpret it, right? But they always shy away from this stuff. And they go, why do we need to know about the evil? Why do we need to know about the wickedness? And most pastors never talk about the evil. They never talk about the wickedness, ever. And they give you that spiel. They go, we don't need to hear about that stuff. We'll talk about the love of God. And that's how Christians get deceived, by not being aware of what their enemy is doing. Not being aware of that old serpent, right? Because the Bible tells us to be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves. The only way you're going to be as wise as a serpent is to be aware of what the serpent's plans are and to keep a watchful eye on him, which is what I'm trying to do. Keep a watchful eye on the enemy. So stay prayed up during this time period. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.